on. Here we go. I'll give us a few minutes to see who is actually here. But I do want to say a belated good morning. Good morning, Sharnice. Good morning, Kyra. Ujima. Good morning, Regina Renee. Good morning, Pat. Good morning again, Sharnice. And good morning, Blackavelli X. Hello. So Ujima is actually my favorite Kwanzaa principle. I would say that it's my favorite. It's one that's extremely meaningful to me. And I'm really happy to be celebrating it with you. So there are about 6 of you here. Please let me know if you can hear me. Ujima, good morning, Erica. Thank you. I'm assuming you can hear me. Just let me know, please. I'm going to put the Kwanzaa principle up. When I said this was going to be cozy, I was literally in bed and I was like, wow, it's so amazing that, I have so much time to sleep and I feel so refreshed and it's not even 7. And then I wake up and it's 7:30 and the sun is up. And I'm like, that's why I feel so great. It's because I'm late. So I'm going to move all the times to 8 o'clock for the next several days so I can sleep a little bit more. All right. So here is Ujima, collective work and responsibility. Let me give you more of me because why not? There we go. Collective work and responsibility to build and maintain our community together and to make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems and to solve them together. So let's edit that because Kwanzaa needs to be using gender neutral language. I got this from the official site. So to build, thanks everybody, you're very sweet. To build and maintain our communities, I'm going to change it to communities because there are many communities together, and to make our peoples, not brothers and sisters, also apostrophe usage, come on, to make our people's problems our problems and solve them together. There we go. That's better. Look at that. Look at us Ujima-ing the principal. All right. Okay, so for those of you who are new here watching, or people who are rewatching or watching after this posts, welcome. This is the cozy Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon. Extremely cozy today because my behind slept through the first half an hour of it, but you guys are so kind, so thank you. But this is a Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon. It is an opportunity for those of us who are part of the Onyx Pages family. Thank you, Blackavelli X. I woke up and we did the thing. Those of us in the Onyx Pages community to celebrate Kwanzaa together by talking about the books that we've read during the year that remind us of the principle. So typically, this is the 4th year that I've done the Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon. This is the coziest one of all. Usually I've invited other booktubers to participate. I've had guests, and there have been extravagant live shows and people doing it all over the world. And this year, I'm tired. I'm tired. So we are just in our PJs and hanging out and talking about the principles through books. I've been debuting all the pajamas that I've gotten over the holidays. So this is like this situation. Makes me feel very cozy. So that's the thing that's happening. All right, everyone. So my first question for you is, what does Ujima mean to you? this year, because the thing about the Kwanzaa principles is that they are dynamic, and they are, I actually use them for my vision boarding, for my goal setting, and they're dynamic. They mean different things at different times, or different aspects of the principle will speak to me at different times. So today, the the maintaining our communities together is a very important aspect. So, because a lot of us are builders, right? We can build things, right? You can invite people to a thing, you can have an event, you can have an idea and initiate and build it. A lot of us can build, but not all of us can maintain, because maintaining is actually, I think, the harder work. It's the consistency, like being available at 7 o'clock for your people, um, and showing up, being accountable, um, making commitments, keeping your promises, changing as necessary based on the needs of people around you, right? Like, maintaining a community is a lot different than building a community. So I think today I want to focus on two things. The first is maintaining our communities together. And the together part of it is also really interesting, because it's not about one person maintaining the community, right? It's actually about us maintaining our communities together, which means that it's a shared responsibility, i.e., collective work and collective responsibility. Too many times we focus on relying on one person, right? The designated leader, the person who's best for the job, to build and maintain and do the work. And oftentimes that falls to femmes, right? So, like, for example, if we look at whatever your thoughts are about the movement for Black lives, but if you look at the fact that that BLM was created by Black queer folks, right? But if you think about the ways in which that got lost throughout the way, there's often in our community sort of an expectation that femmes will put in a lot of emotional labor, and they will hold things up, and if they don't, then things fall, right? Until another femme comes in and holds things up. And really what Ujima is about, it's about the fact that we all do this together, right? We are all expected to work together, to commit to each other. The other part of Ujima that I really love is the idea that we make our people's problems our problems, and we solve them together. And what I like about that, the making our people's problems our problems, is that this is not about charity. Good morning. Good morning, Brittany. This is not about charity. This is about deciding that if you're not well, I can't be fully well. If you're facing oppression, I can't fully be liberated and free, right? And I think part of that is because our experiences of oppressions link together, right? So, for example, we cannot fully be free from, we can't fully be free from white supremacy if transphobia exists, right? Like, that's not a thing that can happen, right? We can't fully be united as a community if we are ableist. That's not a thing that can happen, right? All of the oppressions are linked together. They operate in tandem, even if I might not experience the same kind of oppression that you do. So it is actually a fact that our systems of oppressions are all of our problems, right? We should be equally as upset when, when a group of, people, we should be equally upset when a bookstore in our community refuses to represent pride or refuses to have an LGBT section. We should be just as upset if our Black bookstores don't do that, or our Black authors do not create communities that include Black queer folks in their books, we should be just as upset when that happens, right? Because it's our problem. It should be our problem. And that goes for the experiences between diasporas. We have different histories, but they are connected. They're unique and distinct, but they are connected. So it's about making our people's problems our problems, and then solving them together. So here's where I want to talk about beefs and shade and things like, and social media and drama. I'm not going to talk about any particular thing, but I I'm not afraid of conflict, and I'm also not afraid of calling people out or calling people in and engaging. I actually think that conflict is not a bad thing or a good thing. It's a necessary thing. It's like medicine. Um, and conflict is necessary. Once there's a problem and you're trying to fix a problem, it's unlikely that you'll be able to fix a problem without conflict. And so Ujima actually creates a safe space for conflict to exist because there's a purpose, there's Nia involved, right? You're not just fighting for the purpose of fighting, but you're actually trying to heal something. And the reason I say that is because I do think our communities have to get better at being in conflict with each other and understanding that conflict can be helpful, whether it's inner conflict or intra-conflict or conflict between our communities and other non-African descended communities. So Ujima, as you can see, is a principle I have thought a lot about. I even have a mentorship circle for junior lawyers and for law students that's called Ujima Mentorship Circle, and it's one of my favorite principles. So, collective work and responsibility. That is what it means to me, to build and to maintain our communities together and to make our people's problems our problems and to solve them together. So what does Ujima mean to you? How have you practiced Ujima this year? And after I get your answers, then we'll talk about some books, because that is also why we're here. Have I picked a stack of books? No, I have not. Thank you for asking. Okay, Erica. This year, I have practiced Ujima through keeping communication open, non-judgmental, full of love and encouragement, being honest about my weaknesses and being open to feedback. Thank you for sharing, Erica. So, Erica, I have some questions for you. First of all, tell me about being non-judgmental and how you have been able to accomplish that. Because your girl is judgmental. I am extremely judgmental. In fact, I think it's one of my best qualities. So I'm very, very judgmental. And I do not strive to be non-judgmental because that's like trying to train myself out of breathing, right? I'm an extremely judgmental person. That's why people love Onyx Pages, because I judge books, I judge things. So what do you mean when you say non-judgmental? Because I know that for a lot of people, being non-judgmental is a virtue and it's very important. And it seems like it's very important to you. So I'd like to understand, number one, why it's important to be non-judgmental, what you mean when you say that you strive to be non-judgmental, and how you've been able to accomplish that when you have this year. And I feel like my friend Brittany, who's here, is probably laughing because this is such an endearing question. I feel like Brittany's saying, Jerry, people are not going to answer your questions if you cross-examine them afterwards. Is that what you're saying, Brittany? But anyway, I am very curious. I'm very curious about that. Yeah, I know you're cackling. Okay, and full of love and encouragement. I definitely get that. And by being honest and about your weaknesses. I have another question, Erica. So while you're working on that one, the second is about being honest about your weaknesses. So for example, today, I made a commitment to be here at 7:00 and I was not. I was in dreamland and it was a wonderful dream. And then I woke up and I was like, oops. So changed the time, showed up an hour later, made my apologies and moved on, right? So I think saying like I'm unable to do something, I made a commitment, and I have to pull out because I can't do it. I think part of it is that, for me, and also like being honest about my weaknesses, is also about saying, yeah, I do. Like I jump to conclusions, or yes, I didn't listen in that moment, right? Like stuff like that. But I'd like to hear more about how you do that and how that has been, how that has assisted you. And then being open to feedback, I think is so important. I think that if more of us, like if you think about this, like think about these qualities that Erica has put out here for Ujima: open communication, non-judgment, full of love, full of encouragement, being honest about my weaknesses, and being open to feedback. If you take those qualities and you elevate them to the level of states and nations, and if we did that, like even think about COVID-19. If we had open communication, we were non-judgmental, we were full of love and encouragement, we were honest about our weaknesses and open to feedback, how would we have managed this pandemic differently? Right? So there's so much power in the things that you've identified. I'm glad you did. Thank you. Okay, let's see if you answered my questions. Okay, we're going to get to your comments. All right. Judgment keeps me from being my best self and giving the best to others. Okay. Oh, sorry, I missed this. Judgment interrupts love. Yeah. Judgment interrupts love. Okay, I disagree. And I would love to hear more about this. It's something that I've thought about. I grew up in a very judgmental family. I was part of a very judgmental religion, Catholicism, for the first 20 years of my life, which, ironically says, thou shalt not judge, but then does. Um, so yeah, I've judgment has been a big one for me. So I could talk about judgment all day, and I really would love to. Okay, let's talk about wonder. Regina's Renee is Regina Renee. So you were correct the first time. Okay, so let's talk about sneezing. Excuse me. Excuse me. Good. Okay. Let's talk about Regina Renee's thoughts. Okay. Oh, excuse me. Oh, yes. Okay. Ujima is, so first of all, Erica, Regina Renee, loved what you said. And Ujima is the principle you struggle with the most. Okay, so I want to talk about that too. Why do you struggle with that? If you want to share that, and in what ways do you struggle with Ujima? And then you also said, Regina Renee, many times I thank you for saying, bless you, Erica. Many times I experience holding people accountable as being seen as judgmental. Me too. Me too. You know, and sometimes when I'm holding myself accountable, sometimes people apologize because they think they've offended me. So for example, like I have a colleague at work, and let's say if I may think that she didn't do something which impacts me, right? So I'm like, did you do this or did you not do this? And she might say, I actually didn't do it because you asked me not to do it. And then I'm like, oh, this is my fault. Okay, cool. It's my fault. Good, right? So we're settled. I apologize. I will fix it, right? So sometimes it's like I'm holding myself accountable, but the fact that like it's not a lot for me to do that, to be like, yeah, I did it. I mean, sometimes I fight. Tommy will tell you sometimes I will struggle with this, but oftentimes I do not. And oftentimes I will just be like, yeah, I screwed up. I didn't do that. You're absolutely right. And I'll just sit in that. And it's not easy. And it took me time to do that. But when I hold other people accountable, it can sometimes inspire feelings of like embarrassment or shame or defensiveness or anger or fear, because a lot of us grew up in situations where if you didn't keep your promises, you would be like brutally punished for that, right? Or shamed, or you would have some sort of negative consequence. So, we grow up not wanting to admit when we're wrong because, we don't want to feel separate from others. So I think that's a really interesting thing to think about, right? That, how do we, just picking up on some of the things that Erica has said, is like, how do we hold people accountable? Because what Erica also says around judgment is that we're practicing Ujima through keeping communication open, non-judgmental, full of love and encouragement. So how do you hold somebody accountable and also hold them in love and also be encouraging? So yes, you failed me. You failed me. And I'm going to hold you accountable to that. I also am hugging you and still loving you and kissing your face, right? So how do we, in your familial relationships and stuff, but like, how do you actually do that with people who you've never met, with a stranger or something, right? What does that look like? Okay, I think we've taken that down the road and beyond. Let's see what else you've said about this, Regina Renee. Have you said anything else? Okay. All right. So let's take some other comments about Ujima. Yeah, so there's a lot of love for what you're saying about holding people accountable as being seen as judgmental. Erica, I did not see your earlier response. Let me go up and see if it says it starts with all change. No, I do not see a response that begins with all change. Can you repost it, please? Okay. Habari Gani, Britt. And so Britt Ryder Lee and Shay with the Hobbies. So Shay, Cache from Shay with the Hobbies. They're hosting the Kwanzaa-Thon this year. So you should find their channels. As long as you subscribe to their channels, you will see all of their videos, because they're doing a lot of great like discussions and like reaction videos and cozy crocheting with me and all those kinds of things as part of the Kwanzaa-Thon. So if you are not finished after today with your Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon, you can continue today with all the videos associated with the Kwanzaa-Thon. So definitely do that. Ujima, I'm glad you caught us early in the morning. Okay, Blackavelli. Blackavelli X, excuse me. I admit I feel judged when I'm held accountable at first, but in retrospect, it was necessary and I'm appreciative. My question for you, Blackavelli X, how long does it take you to go from point A to point B? And how do you respond when you feel judged, right? Because you can feel judged and still receive, right? But do you find that when you feel judged, you feel defensive? And then how long does the retrospection take? Are we talking 5 minutes? Are we talking 5 years? And then, how do you, not you generally, but not you personally, but generally, like, how do you come back to the situation after the retrospection and say, I'm a new person now. And this new person who has evolved since 5 minutes ago understands what you're saying and is appreciative. And how do we do that as communities, right? So if we look at communities, like there was, I don't know if you were aware of this, but during the period in which the Black Panther movement was active, there was a letter that was written by the leader of the Black Panthers to others within the community, and it was about this gay struggle. And it was you can find this letter online. It's very short, but it's basically saying, like, if we're engaged in liberation work, we have to be engaged in liberation work. I mean, it was obviously not intersectional, but it was like, we need to recognize that the gay movement is trying to accomplish things that are similar, right? Or at least addressing oppressions that are connected in some way. So there's a letter. If you know what letter I'm talking about, you can put that letter in the chat. Just that letter, let's not hotep the chat. But it's really interesting as an example of our communities looking at how to be accountable within our communities and also outside of our communities. Okay. Brittany, I think it's because when we are being held accountable, we might get defensive at first glance. Absolutely. I do get defensive. It depends on what I'm being held accountable for. If it's something that I'm righteous about, then I'll probably be defensive for a little bit. I try to like have that defensiveness not last a long time, but it also depends on my mood. Like, if it's in the middle of a fight, it's going to take me a minute to come down and be like, okay, fine, you're right. If I'm like chill, I've slept enough, I've hydrated, whatever, I might just be like, yeah, you're good. You're right. Yes. You're right. I did it wrong. We only hold ourselves accountable. I'd love to hear more about your thoughts here. Yeah, I'd like to hear more about that, Erica, because I do think that it's important to hold others accountable and that there are ways and healthy ways to do that. So say more about that. I'd love to hear it. And we are here to model and inspire. I agree. 100%. Okay, Regina Renee, we're going to get to books in a way. 1 second. Okay. Accountability is central to collective work and responsibility for me. However, I struggle mightily because I hold myself accountable and expect others to do the same. The expectation isn't always met. Yes. Yeah. I feel similar. I do hold others accountable, and I'm very direct about it. And I've received feedback that it can be difficult for people that sometimes it feels like a lot for people, right? It feels a lot like being in relationship with me because they call it demand. I will say expect, because I demand/expect accountability from people, that it can make relationships difficult because I don't forget things. I'm less forgiving than I should be. I'm a Taurus. I'm admitting my weaknesses. And so it's so if like things don't go by me, but I try to balance that by also like fessing up when I don't do things. And I think I hope that by doing that, it makes it safer for people to feel like they can mess up around me as well. Just be like, yep, said I was going to do the thing. I didn't do it. Okay, bye. I'm now resetting. But yeah, it is. I think we're similar in this way, Regina Renee. Regina Renee, I have a question for you. Do you find that you take it personally when people are not accountable to you because it's such a value that you hold so dear, so that when other people are not accountable to you, it feels personal? That's a question, because I find that with me as well. I struggle with that. Yeah, it is weird. It disappeared. Can you give us your, okay, I see that you did it below. Thank you. Great. Okay. Yeah, that's weird. Maybe YouTube ate it. It gets testy. Okay. Brittany, I'm your friend. Yes. Yes, you are my friend. The way that I do friendship is literally Ujima, and it rubs off. Yeah, I am very, if we're friends in real life, I don't even need to explain this to you. But if we're like internet friends, or just peeps, the like I live Ujima. This is like how I do things. I do projects collectively. I do not believe in stealing ideas. I believe in inspiring people. I'm territorial but not possessive. I am territorial but not competitive, except with myself. Well, no, I can be competitive, but I try to be competitive with myself. Um, but yeah, because I do compare myself to others, which I shouldn't. And I think that can be harmful. Comparing yourself to others can be harmful to Ujima. I'm sharing a lot today. Um, Erica, all change is inside out. Each of us is charged to make change. It is not our work to get anyone else to change. It's actually impossible, so futile. Yeah, um, I share your view that it that people themselves have to decide to change. Like somebody can't change me, right? I might see someone and I might see, like, for example, my friend Brittany. My friend Brittany made this Melanin Eclectic reading journal, which I've used throughout 2022. 2021. I still have December to do, right? She made this and has made so many things. My 2022 planner, I can see it, but I'd have to get up and I'm not doing that right now. Um, and like, I'm so inspired by her creativity, right? I'm just going to put her back up here because she'll be embarrassed. And I love that. So she does so many things. Like I've got stickers, I've got washi tape, like all sorts of things that she makes. She's perpetually in a state of creativity, kuumba. Um, but I I am not like, I want to be more creative, right? And so as a result of being friends with Brittany, I have become more creative, right? Brittany didn't change me and she didn't set out to change me, but because I'm like surrounded by like all of her things, right? It's just like, it's just, it's, yes, literally rubbing off on me. And so if I said to one of my friends, I want to be more creative, hold me accountable to that, I might say how, tell them how I want to do that. Like, you know, ask me every month, what did you create this month? Or ask me in May, did you do that thing, right? Sometimes we do that. And that's how we change sometimes, is by asking people to come along with us through our journey of change. But we don't change people. Um, but we might be the reason why they choose to change. Um, And I don't think it's bad to seek to influence people. I mean, I'm an influencer. Like, it would be completely hypocritical for me to say that I do not want to actively encourage people to read with purpose. I say it at the end of every video. I am here because I want people to read more Black science fiction and fantasy. That's why you see my shelves in every video. That's why I talk about the books that I talk about. So I want to inspire change. But if you choose to read Nalo Hopkinson because you heard me squee about her, also read Nalo Hopkinson. Or if you read Octavia Butler or Samuel Delaney or any of these books because you saw it on my channel, I'm going to be happy. But that's not a change I created in you. That was something you did for yourself. But I'm still trying to influence you. Like, make no mistake, this is not only altruistic. So those are my thoughts about that. But I do agree that change is inside out. We model, live our principles, and thereby create space where every good thing for growth. Because no one is running to be judged. People run toward good examples. Okay, they showed up. All right. Okay, I'm glad you found that funny, Blackavelli. So as a reminder, I asked the question, how long does it take for you to retrospect? And do you come back to the person? So the retrospect usually takes you several minutes to a few hours, sometimes days. I acknowledge the thing I'm being held accountable for to the people holding me accountable, and I talk about it. I like that. Practice. Thanks for the shout out. You're amazing. Like Britt, you're amazing. This is an amazing event. One thing you appreciate about Ujima from the way we're engaging in now is how I can be a collective work of all the people who love me and whom I have loved. Yeah. Yeah. Do you mean how you can be a product of, like, you're a product of what the collective who loves you does? Because I think that's a really powerful thing. Like when you're part of a group or part of a circle. Like I have a circle of friends. Brittany is one of them. I have a circle of friends, and even though most of us haven't met in like the flesh, um, we know each other really well. And like my group of friends, this particular group of friends, they're able to see me and reach to me, like reach to parts of me that people who've known me for over 10 years can't. And they have expectations of me, and they remind me of expectations that I've set for myself. And because they love me and they care about me, they notice things and will speak to things. And I think that's a really powerful thing. So that's that, like loving as collective work and responsibility, actively loving, right? That's really interesting. That's really interesting. Okay. Thank you very much for the Huey P. Newton letter. Appreciate that. If you put a link, it didn't come through, but folks can look it up. Yeah, you're a Taurus. Yeah, I'm a Taurus. I'm like, Machiavelli, I think I get you. Yeah, you take it personally. It's hard not to when something's important and it's not respected by others, for sure. Oh, wait, Wonder, though. I'm going to press you on something, Wonder, because you're making an assumption. You said, I also take it personally. It's hard not to when something is important to you and it is not respected by others. So this is something that a therapist once told me. So I was talking about feeling not respected when people didn't keep their promises. And she's like, how do you know that somebody who hasn't kept your promises doesn't respect you? And I'm like, well, it's so obvious. And she's like, well, is it? This is what happens when you have therapists who are like Black and queer and Trinidadian. She's like, well, is it? And she gave me the auntie look. Is it though? And for me, I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I might feel disrespected, but that just because I feel disrespected doesn't mean the person has less regard for me, right? It might mean that they're not doing something I want them to do. But is the definition of respect doing something that somebody else wants you to do? Like, it can't simply be that. So I feel similarly to you, Wonder, but I've been challenged on that last point, that that because someone is not doing something that I want them to do, it doesn't mean that they disrespect the desire. It might mean that they're choosing not to do it or they're not able to do it, but it doesn't mean they they don't respect the need that I have. Unless, of course, they don't respect the need and I have other evidence of that. But that's something that I struggle with. Even in talking about it, I'm not totally clear. That's an area that I'm struggling with as well. We are going to get to books. I'm going to go through these comments and then we're going to get to the books because 8:39 and no books yet. Depending on how much I care about the person, the situation, I do take it personally. Yeah, me too. Me too. The same is true with how I approach feedback. Feedback is a gift. I use those exact words. I feel seen. If I don't care about you, I'm not giving. Regina, Renee, why did you have to come so bold with it? If I don't care about you, I'm not giving you feedback. I say the same thing. I say, look, this is what you need to worry about. Don't worry. You need to worry if I stop being upset. If I just say, you know what, forget it. Do whatever you want. That's a kiss of death. That's a kiss of death. If I'm still in the ring, that's because I love you. But if I'm like, okay, that's cool. You do you, friend. Bye. I'm a Taurus. That might be our last conversation. Yes, go hide, because I'm gonna never stop talking about how amazing you are. That being said, I need to choose to accept feedback as the gift that it is. Yeah, me as well. I've gotten better as I've aged and matured. If you ask for, excuse me, hold on, clearing my throat. Sorry, I'm muted. If I ask, I said I'm gonna go get some tea. If I ask for accountability, I always give them parameters because letting full control go is hard. Yes. Yes. I'd love to get some examples of your parameters. Like sometimes I might say, can you do this? Can you please, I want you to do this for me. Can you please do this? And if the person doesn't do it, can you do this by Friday? And if they haven't done by Friday, stop asking and I just do it myself, because they're clearly unable to do it or they don't want to do it and they can't say no. So there's that. I love boundaries. Juanita, you inspire me to read Black SFF. I'm always writing down the titles, add to my list. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's what I'm here to do. Also, I should get to some books. While we go to the last comment, okay, everybody stop commenting for a minute. When I get to the last comment, I'm going to get some books. But while you're not commenting, you can think of the books that remind you of Ujima, Collective Work and Responsibility. I sound like your therapist. I sound like my therapist. Do we have the same therapist? Hello, TRN. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Sound gone. Thank you. Yes. Okay, so we are going to have a commercial break for a minute. This is going to allow me to get my tea. I'm also going to pull some Ujima books. So during this break, please pull your Ujima books or get your list, and you can start posting in the chat the name of books that remind you or that include the theme of Ujima, Collective Work and Responsibility. I'm going to get my tea, and then I'm going to get my books. Right back. All right, I'm going to start pulling some books from my shelves. I'm going to try and not pull books that I've already pulled before. And my goal is to pull 5, but what often happens is that we end up with a lot more than 5. Okay, so done. I will pull that one. Obviously these 2. Let's see, where does it go? Are you pulling your books? I hope so. Let's see. I don't think that fits this one. There's another one that it fits better. Ooh, this is a good one. This is a bit different. Okay, that's 3. Let's look in the back here. That's what I was looking for. That's 4. And last one. I want to tell you what I did to my shelves because I feel as though... Yes. Oh, Brittany, you're going to like this one. And, you're going to like this one too. Okay. I've got my stack. I hope you have your Ujima stack. Okay. So the first book, wait, let me first... All right. Thank you for that. Okay. I'm looking up Kwaheri because I don't know what that means. Kwaheri. What does it mean in Swahili? Goodbye. Okay. All right. Bye, Erica. All right. So let's start with your choice. So Nubia, Real One. Let me pull that. Nubia, Real One reminds you of collective work and responsibility. Okay, so still want to sit on my Switch. Okay, so this is the story of Nubia, who finds out, I mean, if you look at her shirt, you will notice some things. This was such a wonderful graphic. L.L. McKinney wrote it. Robin Smith was the illustrator and colorist. Yeah, we need to talk about this more. This is definitely a really great collective work and responsibility book. Agreed. Okay, the first book I chose, very similar, goodness me, is Magnifique Noir by Brianna Lawrence. So this is book one, I Am Magical, and this was independently published. Okay, I think you can get it on Etsy, and you might be able to get it on the online store that shall not be named, but also try Sister Sci-Fi, see if she can get copies of this. So I'm going to read the back. The revolution will be magical. There's a city. It's like most other cities, buildings, people, monsters who can destroy sidewalks by vomiting acid onto the ground, and an elite group of Black, queer, magical girls who put those monsters in their place. See? Just like most other cities. Bree Danvers would have compared it to a video game, maybe a cartoon or comic book, except Black girls are rarely the heroines of the story, but there her heroine stood, plus-sized and wonderful, rocking a dazzling amount of purple and defeating monsters with galactic sparkles. Galactic Purple, that was her name, and soon Bree was joining her on a magical adventure full of transformations and after-school battles to defend a city like most other cities. And soon others would join them, and each one would be magical in their own way, or give or take a few bumps on the acid-covered ground. That is Magnifique Noir number 1 and Magnifique Noir number 2. One of the things that I love about this book is that you've got writing and pictures, and it kind of like feels like a magazine sometimes because of or a comic. Like there'll just be illustrations out of nowhere, and it just makes the book such a pleasure to read. So I finished number 1 and loved it, and then number 2. Now Chloe from Thistle and Verse has reviewed this, and I believe she has an interview with the author on her channel. So if you're interested in Magnifique Noir, check it out. Okay. You missed the conversation earlier. That's okay. You can rewatch it. But the only book you can think about is Ring Shout, which I have up here. So I'll add it to the stack. And I think we talked about Ring Shout yesterday was it yesterday for self-determined? No, for the first one, for Unity. Regina Renee mentioned Ring Shout, I think, for Unity. So I'll put that here. Yes, Ring Shout applies to everything. You didn't miss the mark. You did not miss the mark. I don't think I read any fiction with this principle, but I appreciated Thomas Sankara's speech, Women's Liberation and the African Freedom Struggle. I haven't listened to it. But thank you for sharing that. Oh, this is in my Octavia E. Butler mug. Write Yourself In. And this was a gift from Ayanna Jameson of the Octavia E. Butler Legacy Network. Okay. All right, the Jumbies series. Yes. Usually they're right up here. So there are 3. It's a trilogy. There's Jumbies, King of the Jumbies, and Return of the Jumbies. But I think it's in my back shelves. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to get that right now. But yes, that's an excellent example. So in the Jumbies, yeah, it's in the back of my shelves. So the Jumbies by Tracy Batiste, that trilogy is very much collective work and responsibility. And one of the things that and it's also a great Umoja book as well, because it's a community that is dealing with jumbies, which are magical creatures that come out of Caribbean folklore. Um, and there are different kinds of jumbies. There's like jumbies from the forest, there's water jumbies, all sorts of different jumbies. Um, and this little girl, realizes that she's part Jumbi, and her city where she lives believe that jumbies are bad, and have pushed them into the woods, right? And so they have to live in hiding. And there's this kind of like return of the jumbies, and the village has to contend with the fact that with the place where they live used to be inhabited by jumbies, and now it's inhabited by humans that are pushing the jumbies into the forest. Um, and that's a problem that needs to be solved, and so they can only really do that by collective work and responsibility, and I think that that's really powerful. And it speaks to the collective work and responsibility that is involved in changing a community's mind and changing its habits and traditions and prejudices, really. Thanks for that, Regina Renee. Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardino Evaristo. Somebody's Daughter by Ashley C. Ford. I've read neither of those books. Thank you for mentioning them. That's great. Yes, the ever-growing list. Okay. All right. The other thing that you can do is you can check out my Instagram, because I've been posting pictures of the book stack. So that's also another way to remember what we talked about. Nubia is beautiful, yes. Legendborn, yes. I know that folks have feelings about Legendborn. I do too. My feelings were very good. That is a collective work and responsibility book. So that's great. I want to see what she has to build out the world. I need more of this world, because I feel like there wasn't enough. Like, I love the book, but I feel like there wasn't enough of the ancestral magic. And I hope that the second book is super blackety black and that we get to learn more about that side of the world. But yes, Legendborn by Tracy Dion. And then War Girls by Toshi Onyebuchi. Climate change and nuclear disasters have rendered much of Earth unlivable. Only the lucky ones have escaped to space colonies in the sky. In a war-torn Nigeria, battles are fought using flying deadly mechs, and soldiers are outfitted with bionic limbs and artificial organs meant to protect them from the harsh, radiation-heavy climate. Across the nation, as the years-long civil war rages on, survival becomes the only way of life. Two sisters, Oni and Ifi, dream of more. Their lives have been marked by violence and political unrest. Still, they dream of peace, of hope, of a future together. And they're willing to fight an entire war to get there. So Brittany from Melanin Eclectic and I read this, and we squeed about it on her channel. So you can go to Melanin Eclectic and find that discussion if you'd like to hear more about it. But she's a Tochi Onyebuchi stan. So am I. And this is War Girls. But she's more of a stan than I am, because I still haven't read Beast of Night and Crown of Thunder and other books. So yes, that's great. Okay, what else? Yes, you need to get Nubia, and yes, Magnifique Noir is amazing. The good version of the Powerpuff Girls. I don't know the Powerpuff Girls. What is quite heteronormative and rooted in binary gender? Wonder, what are we talking about? Oh, Powerpuff Girls? Yeah, I'm not going to be Powerpuffing anytime soon. Yes, yes. My Instagram. Brittany, can you put my Instagram in the chat, please? Oh, this is what happens when you know your friends. When you know your friends. Okay. Yes, Goliath is coming in January. My brain put January and Goliath together and called it Goliath. No. Hi, Tati. Oh, you were talking about your recommendation, which was Thomas Sankara's speech. Oh, it's heteronormative? Okay, I'm not going to read it. But others might. Thank you for that. Okay, you'll explain Powerpuff Girls when we finish. Sounds good. All right. Okay, the rest of the books are The Deep. This is probably one of the most Ujima books I have on my shelves, because this character here literally has to bear the brunt of her people's memory, right? They have forgotten their past. So they have one member of the community who has to like shoulder the weight of remembering the past and being the keeper of that pain. Now, everybody else in the community gets to remember once a year at this ceremony, but this person has to keep that memory. Sorry, I have to change my battery. She has to keep it, and there's an emotional cost to being the keeper of the memories. And so towards the end of the story, we have to ask the question, like, is it right to have only one person who has the responsibility to, remember everything, right? I also picked up The Good Luck Girls. I've talked about it before, but there's the themes of collective work and responsibility are in that. The Gilda Stories by Jewel Gomez, Black Lesbian Vampire. I'm going to read this. So this, if you haven't read this, you have to. This is canon for Black speculative fiction. There's been nothing like it since. This remarkable novel begins in 1850s Louisiana, where Gilda escapes slavery and learns about freedom while working in a brothel. After being initiated into eternal life as one who shares the blood by two women there, Gilda spends the next 200 years searching for a place to call home. An instant lesbian classic when it was first published in 1991, The Gilda Stories has endured as an auspiciously prescient book in its explorations of Blackness, radical ecology, redefinitions of family, and the erotic potential of the vampire story. You're welcome. Now, vampires. If you like books about history and books about like change over time, vampire stories are really great because vampires live for very, very long times. So there's often references to the past, the present, the future in any kind of vampire story, or any good one, i.e. not Twilight. And so I think I think this is a really good vampire story. But the main, you learn something about Gilda very, very early, and also the feminist approach to being a vampire, like how the blood is shared, is also a very Ujima collective work and responsibility way of thinking about vampires, reimagining vampires. So there's that. And then let's see if you have any other books. Okay. So Rena Barron's middle grade is Maya and the Rising Dark, which I talked about for another one. And it's actually on my Kwanzaa altar. So Maya and the Rising Dark is definitely a collective work and responsibility story. A lot of these have themes, Kwanzaa related themes. Okay. Are you talking about the Gilda Stories having everything that one needs? Because, yes, the vampire story is the Gilda Stories. I hope you're writing it down. Okay. Okay. And yeah, it was. Okay. And the last book is Parable of the Sower. This is the special edition with Paul Lewin's art on it. Paul Lewin is an incredible artist. And he also did the cover. I'll show you another cover he did. This is by Octavia E. Butler, The Parable of the Talents, and the parable of the sower. And this is the story of a young girl who lives in a gated community in a time of political, religious, and sociological unrest. She leaves that place when it gets burned down by thugs who are on this drug that makes them want to burn and destroy things. And she and a whole bunch of people travel along this highway. This is in Los Angeles. Travels along this highway to escape this thing that's happening. She takes things with her to start a new life with the people she meets along the way. And while she was living in this gated community, her dad's a pastor. She doesn't really believe in the religion of her father, and she creates her own religion called Earthseed. And one of the premises of the religion is God is change. And over time, she builds this community with people. And this book is about alternatives, about caring for the environment, about thinking beyond this earth, and about different people living together and making it work, and a whole host of other things. So that's Parable of the Sower, Parable of the Talent. It's a must read. Everything that Octavia Butler has written is a must read. And I guess this is a good time to plug a very Ujima project, which is the Octavia E. Butler Slow Read. Since 2020 September, Musical Tati, Isis from Sista Sci-Fi, and I have been collectively working and have been collectively responsible for the Octavia E. Butler Slow Read. We are reading all of Octavia E. Butler's works in near chronological order. Our first book was Kindred. Then we read the Patternist series. So Clay's Arc, so Wild Seed, Mind of My Mind, Clay's Arc, Survivor, and then Pattern Master. So we read that. So those were the first bit of books. And then we started with the Xenogenesis series. We've read Dawn. We've read Adulthood Rights, and I did that to the pages, which makes me very happy. And then in January, we are going to read Imago, which is in a box. So if you want to join us, then you can join us in January and read the first 2 books and join us. So that's a thing. So yes. Okay, so that is everything. Yes, just keep on adding. A lot of people consider her a prophet. She was very clear that she did not want to be seen as a prophet or as prescient, because she felt like she was writing about things that were already happening. And by calling her a prophet, not by calling her a prophet, but she felt that when people said, "Oh, you're talking about things that are going to come," she's like, "No, it's already here. Like you have to look around you and see what's happening right now," which I guess is interesting, because prophets are also they're like, don't ignore it. Like it is happening right now. So maybe that's a thing that prophets say. But she's a very very humble, prescient writer. Juanita, you met Octavia E. Butler twice. I think that's amazing. I actually had the opportunity to meet Octavia Butler and didn't. And I regret that. But it is, it would have been absolutely amazing. It was at a bookstore. Nalo Hopkinson, my favorite author, was interviewing Octavia E. Butler at a feminist bookstore in Toronto. And I just was going through a thing, and I couldn't leave my house and go. And when it was over, I absolutely regretted it. And it would have been amazing to go, but I did not. So I'm happy that you had the opportunity to do that. All right, everyone. We have, she died a month before you were supposed to meet her. I mean, so many people have stories about this, I know. Yes, it's past 9. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Habari Gani. Have a wonderful Kwanzaa today. I hope that this has started your your reflections or continued your reflections for those who are up at 7. I'm going to change the time to 8. So that's what's going to happen. You'll notice that time change a little bit later. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for our next day of Kwanzaa. Enjoy your reflections. And thank you very much for joining and for chatting. This has been wonderful. And thanks for your grace with our late start time today. You're welcome. Bye. Read with purpose.